So, um, but that's that. Let me check out the chat, see if there's any new comments. There's a comment here from Caspian. Thank you so much for the comment. Do you anticipate another Red Scare in the upcoming years in the U.S.? What should we do if that happens? That's a very interesting question. I just had an interview with Rick Sanchez in his show Direct Impact, the Spanish version. I spoke with him Monday, um, and he was asking me something similar because these campaigns of censorship against students, um, now they're saying that they're going to be on the lookout for students that are showing solidarity with Palestine on campus and persecute them. And when you look at the demographics and you see that it's like 80 something percent of the people that are supporting a ceasefire and pro-Palestine in general are the younger folks, folks 18 to 35, which is the age of college students. When they say on the one side, we're going to persecute people that are pro-Palestine in colleges, and on the other side, it is a fact that the vast majority of people in those colleges are sympathetic to Palestine and are in favor of ceasefire. What's implied there is a persecution of the vast majority of college students, um, which is just completely absurd. And that's one of the elements that I think is new um, in these new campaigns of censorships and attacks. Like, the most active anti-communist campaigns and McCarthyism, it was bad. A lot of people were getting charged, some of whom were communists, and they had the right to be, some of whom weren't, and were falsely charged as communists simply because they were, rational liberals who didn't want to escalate war um, or the world into a world war. And it was a bad time. We should not minimize that. But what we're setting ourselves up for now is something unlike I think we've ever seen, simply because of the proportion of the people that are on the side of the opinions that the empire wants censored. Like this specific case of the college students, if the vast majority of college students are sympathetic with Palestine, and the state is going to try their best to combat that sympathy within college, then they're literally going to have to fight against or repress and censor the vast majority of college students. So I think that, yes, the censorship campaigns, the Red Scares, all of that is coming back. It's going to be more intense than ever before. And it's rooted in the fact that the living standards of the American people are shit. Um, as we've talked about many times, we're young folks are the first generation in U.S. history to look forward to living standards that are worse than their parents. So the material incentive that allowed a portion of American working people to turn an eye to what the empire was doing, that material incentive is gone. And it's not only gone in the sort of way that, um, I don't know, when you lose like 5 pounds, those 5 pounds are gone, and then you can just eat a cheesecake the next day, and then boom, they're back. That's not the form in which this is gone. It's gone for good. Like American capitalism hit its peak capacity, and in the crisis of 1971, it had to financialize. It literally could not keep going in the way that it was going, and capital had to choose when it came time to reinvest that capital, right? Because what distinguishes capital from just things is the fact that there's this telos, this purpose in capital to increasingly accumulate itself. So capital has to be reinvested. The American capitalist, faced with a situation where the rate of profit was miserably low for productive industries, had to decide, well, what do I reinvest this capital in? There was two main routes. Continue with productive industries, but do it elsewhere, China, Mexico, and other parts of the world, Thailand, where you can have cheaper factories, uh, super exploited laborers, that makes it worth it to continue being an industrial capitalist of sorts, or go the route of financialization, which is an even more parasitical form of capitalism where profits are derived from stock buybacks, rents, and interest, instead of being that sort of basic formula of MCM prime, money, commodity, and of course there's a bunch of other letters there. But start with money, finish with money prime, and there's a bunch of stuff in the middle where the surplus value is created that allows you to get the M prime at the end. What these forms of more parasitic capital are is that transition directly from money to money prime, from money to more money. It's usury. That's a form of usury, different forms of usury, and it's something that has been condemned by virtually every religion in the history of humanity. Um, and this development of capital is a structural necessity for a moribund capitalism, and that's why the conditions that our people are in are not improvable. They're only going to be more intensified, and the only way to like actually improve the condition of our people is if we completely restructure our society, our power relations, what classes in power, our institutions, and all of that. But um, within the confines of capitalism, we cannot improve this. So it's a situation that is unprecedented in the U.S., where the material stability that allowed a certain percentage of the people to turn a blind eye to the activities of empire is no longer there and can no longer return, which means that people are only going to continue radicalizing themselves because they see the bombs dropping. And, at one point, it was only the moralists who would see the bombs dropping. They lived fine. And, they took the streets out of this deep sentiment of love for humanity and condemnation of these actions. But now you see the bombs dropping, and you don't have enough to pay for the basic necessities at the end of the month. Your infrastructure in your community is destroyed. Most of the small businesses were forced to close. So you make that connection, as Parenti would label it, the connection of the empire bleeding out the republic. And that radicalizes people. And if that condition that leads to them, the material conditions that lead to that ideological phenomenon in the populace, is unchangeable, if it can only be intensified, it's a very difficult situation that our ruling class is in. So, yeah, absolutely, we're going to have a very scary Red Scare, but I cannot see the ruling class getting out of this one very easily. You know what? Their temporary solution, their temporary extension, would have been Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders was the one candidate that had the capacity, as FDR did with the Great Depression, of giving capitalism a life boost, of allowing the contradictions to control themselves for a bit and prevent them from becoming antagonistic, at least for another decade or two. Um, but they didn't even want Bernie Sanders to win. They're so stupid that they didn't realize that what could have saved them for some decades down the line, they destroyed. So that's, I think, in my view, where we're at, and why the Red Scare campaign is novel in comparison to the ones that we've seen from the past, in the past.